If you've ever had an issue with CapCut lagging, or you're just confused about what any of this means, then this video will be your ultimate guide to understanding your CapCut PC settings. In this video, we're going to cover every single setting in the Settings tab and explain the difference between settings and modify when it comes to changing your video properties. This includes things like what proxies are and why you should be editing with them, how to adjust frame rate and which ones you should be using, and what color space is best for your videos. At the end, I'll also give you my top 3 tips to fix lag in CapCut PC. Skip around the timestamps below if you need to find out about a specific CapCut PC setting. Before we get into settings, I want to show you the 2 ways you can change your video settings. The first one is by going to the Settings tab at the top of CapCut. These settings are the global settings and will affect your current project as well as all future projects. The other way is to open a project, go to the Details panel, and select Modify. The Modify settings are specific to just the project you have open. First, we're going to go through the global settings. You can do this either from your home page or from within a project. For now, we're going to do it from the home page. It's important to note that depending on your CapCut version and your operating system, your Settings tab may look different, but overall, all the settings work the same. Draft or Project section. The first thing we see here is the Save To setting. This is a location on your computer where all your CapCut projects will be saved. Now, you can only open them through the CapCut desktop app, but they're still stored on your computer and will take up space. You can change their location by clicking on the folder icon and selecting a custom folder. This can be useful if you want to organize projects or change their save location. Download To. This is where you can select the file location for any projects you download from your CapCut cloud spaces. When you download a project from a cloud space, it will save all the files that you used in that cloud project to a set location on your computer. It's important to know where this is because after a while, all these video files can take up a lot of space on your PC. Cache and cache size. Most apps you download on your phone or computer have a cache. This is where data from CapCut gets stored, such as stickers and effects that you've downloaded. Storing cache files is meant to help the program load faster, but as you can see here, these cache files can get pretty large, and sometimes they actually end up slowing your program down. Check the cache size here and delete them if you need to free up some storage space. Deleting cache files is also a good place to start if CapCut is running slow. Auto upload. Turn on auto upload to automatically upload any new projects to the CapCut cloud. It's important to note that for this to work, you have to select a default space, otherwise they won't upload. This is a good idea to do if you want to make your projects accessible on multiple computers, or if you want to make sure your files don't get lost if you have a hard drive issue. And trust me, if you work with digital files, one day you will have a hard drive issue. Back up your files. Underneath the space, you can select the size limit for these files. I recommend choosing no limit because, like I said, one day you will have a hard drive issue. But if you're trying to conserve cloud space, you can choose to restrict the file size. But here's a tip. You can always download old project files to your computer and then delete them from the cloud. This will make sure all your new projects are backed up. If you're not backing up your new projects and your hard drive fails, you'll have to restart the entire project from scratch. Edit section. Now, let's jump into a project and open up the settings. Step forward and adjust value. Now, looking at these 2 settings, it makes absolutely no sense. So, this is going to be an aha moment. Step forward allows you to set how many frames you can jump forward or backward in your editing timeline when you hold Shift and press the forward or backward arrow keys. If it's set to 10, my playhead will jump 10 frames. If I go back and change it to 40, for example, my playhead will jump 40 frames. The max you can do here is 100 frames. Now, this is actually super helpful because it lets you scrub through your video using just your computer keyboard, which can be a lot faster than using a mouse. Now, let's go back to settings and look at adjust value. This parameter lets you jump a selected number of units for any parameter you're using. Let me show you an example. If I keep this value set to 10, Then I select a clip and go to the scale. Holding Shift and clicking the up or down arrow keys next to the parameter will jump the scale slider up by 10 or down by 10. If I go back and adjust the value to 20, then I go to scale again, it will jump up by 20 units. This works for just about any effect. Once again, the max number you can set this to is 100. Image duration. This one is super simple, but it's great for anyone who's trying to make a slideshow in CapCut. Here, you can set how long you want the default length of an image to be when you drop it on the timeline. You can choose any number between 0.1 and 100. You can also select if you want this to be in frames or in seconds. As an example, let's say I want to make a slideshow with 7-second images. I can set the image duration to 7, click Save, and then select all the images I want to add to my timeline, and when I drop them in, they'll all be 7 seconds long. From there, you can add transitions and effects to spice things up. Target loudness. Now this one is a little bit technical, but I'll try and make it as simple as possible. A lot of you probably have heard of decibels as a way to measure sound. Well, LUFS, which stands for loudness units relative to full scale, is another way to measure sound. Decibels look at specific parts of your video and they tell you how loud they are at a specific moment in time. LUFS are different. They look at your entire video and essentially give you the average loudness of every second of your video. In CapCut PC, you can change the target loudness to be -23, -14, or -12 LUFS, and CapCut will tell you which settings are good for which platform. Now the tricky part is once you change this, it will not affect your video until you click Save, click the video clip, and go to the Audio tab, then click Normalize Loudness. This can be good if your video clip has parts that are super quiet and super loud. It will essentially help normalize the volume. Honestly, I would just keep this at -23 unless you know that you will specifically be using your video for TikTok or YouTube. Free layer or arrange layers, depending on your device. Now this one is huge. Free layers is what allows you to rearrange layers and place text and images underneath a video clip on the timeline. If you turn this on, it will affect every new project you create. I highly recommend turning this on as it's the standard in most video editing software. Now, if you created a project with the free layer turned on, all you have to do is deselect all clips and click on Modify in the Details panel. Here, you'll see the option to turn free layer on. Once you turn this on, it cannot be turned off in your project. Frame rate. Now, frame rate is one of the most important pieces of info to understand if you want to create videos. If you want to know more about how this affects your videos, I recommend watching tutorials specifically on how frame rate affects your footage. For this tutorial, all you need to know is that your frame rate should match the frame rate of the video you filmed. Most iPhones automatically record at 30 frames per second, but either way, CapCut should automatically set the frame rate when you drop a clip onto the timeline. Timecode. Timecode is another important thing to understand when you edit videos. This setting changes the format of how your video length is displayed. The letters stand for hours, minutes, seconds, and frames. And to be honest with you, when you change the timecode format in CapCut, nothing happens. Sound for export. If you check this box, CapCut will play a sound to let you know when a video is done exporting. Performance section. Encode and decode. For the most part, you want to leave these two settings alone. Speeding up hardware encoding helps with video rendering. Speeding up hardware decoding helps while playing your video in the timeline. If you have issues with exporting your videos, try unchecking speed up hardware encoding. If you have issues with a black or blurry screen while editing your videos, try unchecking speed up hardware decoding. Interface render. I would also recommend leaving this alone unless you're having issues with a black screen during your video playback. If you have those issues, uncheck this box. Proxy editing. Proxies are one of those scary words that's actually super simple once you know what it is. A proxy is just a lower resolution copy of your original video file that helps CapCut run faster. If you have an older computer or one that's not meant for video editing, I highly recommend checking this box to edit with proxies. When you open a project and add video clips, CapCut will automatically create a low-resolution video file and save it to this location. You can change the proxy location to a custom location if you want. You can also see how much space these proxies take up and delete them if you need more storage space. Using Auto Clear, you can also choose how much space the proxies take up before you have CapCut automatically delete them. Video files are still large even when they're low resolution, so it's a good idea to set this parameter to 10 or more gigabytes. To choose proxy resolution or add proxies to a project you already created, go to the Modify tab, then Performance, and turn on Proxy. There, you'll be able to choose from 2 resolutions. Also, don't worry. When you edit with proxies, CapCut will automatically export your video using the original high-resolution video clips. Auto Render. Now, this is a really unique feature in CapCut PC. By turning on Auto Render, you can have CapCut automatically render your footage within selected points on your timeline. This means that CapCut will essentially export your video within the editor. The benefit of this is ultra smooth playback for your videos. To use this feature, turn on Auto Render, hit Save, go to the timeline, and select the beginning of the section you'd like to render by hitting I on your keyboard. Then go to the end section by hitting O, and you'll see the yellow line at the top turn blue, indicating that this section is now rendered. If you need to make changes to this section, CapCut will have to re-render the clips. Now that we've gone through everything in the global settings panel, let's take a look at the project settings or Modify panel. To open the Modify panel, deselect all clips and go to the Details window. Then you should see Modify. This will open up a window that contains all your current project details. This is also the place where you can change the project name. Underneath project name, you can see the file path where this project was saved. Remember, if you need to change the project location, that has to be done in the Global Settings panel. Imported media. Imported media refers to all video, image, and audio files you've placed in the import section of your project. CapCut does not actually store videos inside the app. The way CapCut works is by creating a link to all the files on your computer. Then you edit a reference of these files. Then if you delete, move, or rename the file in the original location, CapCut will pop up this scary unlinked media graphic, and you'll have to manually connect the footage. One way around this is to check Copy Media to Project. If you do, now a copy of any new files you import will be created and saved within a new location. You will no longer be editing the original video footage. This is good to use if you know you'll need to delete, rename, or move the original files. The downside is that all these copies can take up a lot of storage space on your computer. Aspect ratio. Aspect ratio is the size and dimensions of your player window. CapCut will automatically size your player window to the correct aspect ratio. But if you ever want to change it, you can do it inside the Modify panel, or by going to Ratio in the player window itself. Resolution. Resolution is how high quality your video is. You can customize this. For example, if you shot a video in 4K and you want to edit in 1080p on your timeline. For most people, I recommend keeping this set to Adapted. Frame rate. Now this we already went over in the global settings, but this will affect only this project specifically and not all future projects. Color space. This is another fairly complex concept, but put into simple terms, color space is the way CapCut interprets the colors in your footage. It's a mathematical expression of the range of colors that are shown in your video. Rec 709 is the most common setting. I recommend keeping it set to Rec 709 unless you have a specific reason to change it. High dynamic range, or HDR, HLG, and HDR-PQ are pretty complex. They essentially make the dark parts of your video darker and the bright parts brighter. Not all monitors support this feature. If you do choose an HDR color space, I suggest HLG mode because it'll look better on most screens. Arrange layers and proxies. We already covered arrange layers and proxies earlier in the video, so go back and watch that if you're curious about how to use those. How to fix lagging. Now, we already covered most of these sections earlier, but if you're specifically trying to fix lagging in CapCut PC, here are my tips. The first thing you should try is clearing your CapCut cache. If that doesn't work, go to the player window, click the 3 lines at the top right, and select Preview. Change the mode from best quality to best performance. Now, if none of these worked and you're not already, try using proxies. Hopefully one of these tips helps speed up your CapCut app. That's it for this video. If you enjoyed or found this helpful, we'd appreciate a like. And if you're interested in more CapCut PC tutorials, subscribe to learn more.